Hello, my fellow extraordinary Americans. My name is Cosmos Dar, and this is Extraordinary America. What is Extraordinary America? Well, you see, America has always been about freedom, opportunity, and the pursuit of happiness. However, most Americans are not free when it comes to the financial front. Most Americans are suffering from financial slavery due to loss of jobs, stagnant wages, inflation, and debt. Wealth and income inequality is the norm now, and the middle class has all but disappeared. So Extraordinary America is about the abolition of financial slavery. It is about the financial freedom of the 99%. It is about the nation of immigrants and the descendant of immigrants restoring the extraordinary within themselves and setting themselves free. The path to financial freedom is through financial education. It is through becoming entrepreneurs and investors on the light side. In this podcast, I interview fellow Americans who fought against the odds. Many of them came from humble beginnings to see how they did it. It is my hope through these interviews that the extraordinary within you shall awaken and that you will abolish financial slavery from your life and realize the American dream. Once again, welcome to Extraordinary America. Welcome back to the show, my fellow extraordinary Americans. For today, we have a special guest called Andrew McDowell. Andrew is an entrepreneur, mindset and business coach, and podcaster. He's the founder of the entrepreneurial and small business coaching and consulting firm Generate Your Value, co-host of the Generate Your Value podcast, and an executive contributor for Brainz Magazine. Andy spent 22 years with the Boeing Company, where he always felt more like a life coach than a boss. In 2002, he began his journey into entrepreneurship within a corporation when he was asked to develop an aerospace design consulting business from scratch that would serve the global government market. His aviation work took him around the world and enabled him to work on high-profile projects such as preparing the Beijing and Sochi airports for their respective Olympic Games. In his podcast, he brings his own as well as other inspirational guests' experiences and talents to the table to help navigate the obstacles in building a successful small business while enjoying the journey with joy and happiness. Andy is what I would call an extraordinary American, and I'm glad to have him on the show. Andy, are you there?
I'm here.
And Andy, I'm so grateful to have you on the show. I know that you are an entrepreneur, you're a business coach, and you're a podcaster. Can you tell me and the audience a little bit more about yourself, your background, and how you got started?
So we can go way back to the college days. Electrical engineering major at Georgia Tech, went on to get my master's at Georgia State University. And right out of my master's degree, I started working in the entrepreneurial world. So I've experienced three different kinds of entrepreneurship, right? So I've been an employee with two small entrepreneurial firms. Second one got bought out by a big company called Boeing, as you read in the bio. And I was tasked with building a business from scratch within Boeing. So I became an entrepreneur within a corporate environment. Then got laid off in 2019 because of the 737 MAX crashes, along with thousands of other employees, and became an entrepreneur myself. So you could say I've seen majority of the facets, if you will, of entrepreneurship firsthand.
Well, Andrew, so I know, so you were in the Boeing company, and then how is the transition, like, what is the transition like from being in a corporate environment into like doing like your own podcast where you had all these like really interesting and successful guests, and what is the journey like during the transition from that era of your life to the current one?
Well, I think most people would think that it's a big transition, but the reality is, having been an entrepreneur inside of a big corporation, the only difference really is having to go outside of your company to find the resources. So within Boeing, I had departments all around me that supplied people to help me build and run the business along with my own team. Coming out into the entrepreneurial world, you're your own boss and you've got to go find those resources yourself. So got to go interview vendors, figure out who you want to pick as teammates per se, and helping you to build the business or the idea that you have in being an entrepreneur. So if you can think of it that way, it's not that much of a change. Now, that's the logical mind speaking. The emotional side of it's very different, right? Taking a big risk on your own. When you're at Boeing, you're kind of playing with somebody else's money, but when you become an entrepreneur, it's your own money. So the emotional side's very different, but the logically speaking, it's not much of a change.
So Andrew, one of the things I loved about reading about you and knowing more about you is that you started a podcast, right, where you
Mhm.
interviewed other entrepreneurs and everything. And as we know, right, a lot of people they just start podcasts as like an end in itself. But normally podcasts can be used as leverage to be a means to an end to create a big business and everything. Could you tell me and the audience a little bit more about your understanding of how podcasting can work in small business or big business application?
In a small business application, a lot of times it's used as the main reason why I started mine was for marketing of your business. Now, you don't make your podcast episode one big advertisement for your business. You've got to make it entertaining and attractive for people to come in and listen. For mine on purpose, I brought in a co-host who was a business owner because I wanted that coach versus business owner dynamic between the two of us, so that if somebody's listening to the podcast, the way I approach things, the way I talk about things in terms of topics of interest in our episodes, they can very much expect it to be exactly the same way in a coaching environment if they were a client of mine one-on-one. And that's how you want to set up the podcast from that perspective, is how are you making it attractive in a way that the listening audience gets to know you? How authentic are you in your podcast, that you can start building up some trust through the podcast before they even sign their name on a piece of paper, a contract, to become a client. And that's a key integral part of what you do as a podcast if you're truly going to use it as a marketing tool for your business.
So Andrew, I've had like different guests on my podcast so far, right? Like I've had people discuss business strategy, real
Mhm.
estate strategy, even cryptos, gold, silver, and like all these different strategies. But one of the things that I didn't discuss enough, and this is why I'm so grateful to have you in the show, is podcasting strategy. Because like
Mhm.
it's kind of like it's one of those like relatively new things where podcasting has become popular in the last 10 to 20 years. Like before this, it was not really that common, but now everybody like a lot of people are now having podcasting. But a lot of people, like many people, they start their podcast but they never get to beyond a certain point. Like there's a
Mhm.
saying that most people fail after like the first 10 episodes, or it just ends up being a hobby. But one of the things that I want to tell the business like my audience right now, like since we're talking about business and entrepreneurship, is that podcasting is very interesting tool for leverage and marketing if you want to take your brand to another level. Because like there's podcasting in it as a means of itself, and then there's also like a brand, and then you
Mhm.
can create a brand out of it, and people like that's also like a business model, which I found was pretty interesting. But what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, it's a huge branding tool. I mean, so what is a brand? The brand is the trust level and experience that a person has with your business. Uh, in whatever fashion that they're experiencing you through, whether it be your commercials or the buying of your product and service, whatever means that they're engaging with your content, whether it be actual product, service, or marketing, or a podcast, or whatever. Once again, the trust and the experience is what's building your brand. So if you're bringing a podcast that's bringing value to the listening audience, and they're agreeing with what you're saying, you're going to start building up that trust level between you and the listener to the point where they're kind of missing you if they miss the weekly episode, because it's become ingrained within their life per se, because of that trust level that you're in the brand that you're building through your content on the podcast. So it's just a different way of doing advertisement, right? What kind of brand are you building through a TV commercial or a radio commercial or a newspaper ad or whatever? Podcast is no different. It's just that it's being done with certainly audio, maybe video, and most likely doing it through conversation with others, as opposed to just a direct marketing of your products and services. But in the end, it's just another way to build that brand, and you need to approach your podcast that way if you're in it for the long haul.
No, Andrew, I couldn't agree more with you. And like what I would like to add is that like all the guests that you have, you can also have like what is called like strategic joint ventures with them in the future if you want to even expand your brand even further. So what I'm trying to get at is that podcasting is something that I would tell like my audience to definitely take a look at, because it is one of the most innovative ways to basically monetize and basically do it in such a way that you're basically creating an online business, which used to not happen in like until like the early 21st century. We live in like an age where there's so much infinite possibilities that's been created as a result of the internet. But yeah, that's my take on that.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that you can start building your brand a lot quicker through a podcast, because it typically lasts somewhere between half hour to an hour. They're seeing you, at least your voice, if not in person. And they could see how you're approaching life and approaching business, which are not things you get a great feel. You probably have to go through what, 50, 100, 200 TikTok little 2-minute videos to get the same kind of impact that you can out of just a couple podcast episodes or whatever, because they're longer in length. You're therefore bringing more or the potentiality of more value to the listening audience a lot quicker than some of the other social media ways.
No, totally. But Andrew, like on another note, like I know you've interviewed all like the guests that you've interviewed do business and entrepreneurship, and they're pretty successful in whatever they do. Like, what was the biggest lesson you learned during like your time when you did the podcast and like you gathered all this knowledge from all these different people?
The biggest thing is finding help. A lot of entrepreneurs make mistakes. They think they have to do everything themselves. And so I don't, between that and being authentic and showing your true self, I think are the two critical success factors in whether your business is going to succeed or not. So don't be afraid to reach out. Be introspective to understand and realize what your strengths and weaknesses are, and go outsource your weaknesses, right? Go get the help to help you out, and try to limit the activities that you do to the parts of the business that you bring the most value to in doing it. And then be your authentic self. Let people see who you truly are. Once again, to build up that trust and experience when you build the brand from that perspective.
So I find it interesting where you say be authentic, and I
Mhm.
totally agree with that. However, like if you look online, a lot of people portray themselves as like they put a projection which is not based on reality, but then they're sold like they're sold a thing like kind of like the fake it till you make it kind of thing.
Mhm.
You have to get to a certain point and then it self does. But at the same time, being authentic leads to long-term success where it creates a very loyal kind of client base. But I don't know, what's your opinion between the two approaches that you see?
Well, there are going to be those people that project something else and make money. The question is it long-term money? When people start realizing things start leaking out that you're not anything like what you portray yourself to be out there in the world from their perspective. So, that's what I advise my clients. I use a model in my coaching. I call it the be, do, have model. If I were to give you a simple algebra equation, x plus y equals z, and ask you to plug the words be, do, and have into those three variables, where would you plug them? And where the world and Hollywood wants you to plug them is to say x equals do, go do all these things, and y equals have, meaning then you get to have all these things in the world, equals z, which is be, then you get to be somebody. And we all know and heard the stories of the Hollywood people and so forth that have a ton of money, but they're extremely unhappy people. And what I coach my clients to do is to have it be plus do equals have. Concentrate on who you are in this world, your being, and then go align the things that you do in the world, you're doing with who you are and who you're being in the world. And then you get to have joy, happiness, and success in your life every single day. And that goes totally against the grain of what society and marketing and Hollywood and everything else, tries to teach us through what they put out in the world.
Andrew, it's interesting that you say that, because a lot of what Hollywood and a lot of these like really big cities, like kind of like New York or like Hollywood and like Las Vegas, they portray that in order to be happy, you got to have all these material things, you got to have all these mansions. Basically, happiness is becoming a celebrity. Like whatever lifestyle the celebrity have, that is basically the epitome of success and happiness. But we know, like deep down, and once, even if you have those things, you're not, you can still be deeply unhappy. If you look at a lot of these celebrities and you look at their lives, they all end up doing drugs. But I don't know, what's your take on that?
Well, it's a short-term dopamine hit, right? To pull in your driveway that first time with a Lamborghini, that's a pretty big dopamine hit. But a year later, it's like, okay, next. Right? And so they have to go out there and to keep earning more money to keep getting the toys, because they need that new toy to have the dopamine hit. And so it just kind of feeds upon itself, as opposed to being self-reflective, introspective, finding those things in life that truly bring joy and happiness to your heart, whether it be through relationships or hobbies or your creative side, whatever that may be. That doesn't necessarily require you to write $1 million check to get the new toy.
No, that's
right.
Yeah, but like you see, like most people be like, how am I gonna know if I don't have it? I want to have it first, and then I'll decide whether I'm happy or not. But no, I get where you're coming from.
Well, try to learn from people that have done it before. You're going to do all that work to write the $1 million check to get that dopamine hit so you can experience it yourself, just to find the same answer that people that have come before you have done? Or are you going to learn from your ancestors, per se? That
Yeah, like I think like the reason why I'm asking, and I'm really interested about this, is because the American identity itself is about the pursuit of happiness, right? Like the reason why we came to our ancestors came to America as immigrants was to pursue happiness by any means necessary. And the pursuit of happiness usually went towards just like entrepreneurship and business and everything. But over a period of time, we notice the culture became a culture of decadence, at least in like the big cities. And so I find this drive, like most Americans are right now confused between what would give them happiness. Like, is it the material things? Is it chasing the cars, the fast cars, the mansions, and all that stuff that celebrities are doing, or having a more internal based kind of thing, where they're trying to get happiness out of achievements or out of like self-reflection or something that is more internal or within. So that's why this is a pretty important topic in my opinion. And that's why I wanted to ask you about your take on it.
Studies have shown that the path to happiness is in serving of others. If you don't believe me, that's fine. Just Google it on the internet. You'll find plenty of studies done by smarter people than myself. That service to others is where true happiness and joy comes from. So in the pursuit of happiness, do you want to go pursue the almighty dollar to grow your bank account so you can have plenty of toys in the world? When studies have shown that that's a very short-term look at things, or do you want to live a life where you're going to be of service to others? There's no shame and judgment in going out and making a lot of money. The question is, what do you do with it? Because it is a tool. So is the focus of your tool, is it outside of yourself to help others, or is it all about me in my 6 properties and 3 Lamborghinis and the arm candy on my arm every weekend, kind of thing? It's a choice. The most powerful tool for a human being is choice. What do you want to choose for your life?
Andrew,
That's what I'm really helping my clients do, is to make choices.
and that's what I feel like we as a country are at a precipice of, like making a choice. Are we going to go the narcissistic route and choose our own ego and self-gratification? Or are we going to choose the route that leads to greater happiness over the long term, which is service to others? Because basically that is the essence of what all religions say, and like the essence of all spirituality is service in others and putting others first and all of that. But most people, like, they would be like, okay, but what's in it for me? But they don't realize that over the long term, there's a deeper joy that comes in service to other people. But like they've been, like, the media keeps showing them something else. But it's a very interesting take on how to go about pursuing happiness, because that is a central part of American identity.
Well, the pursuit of happiness is about the choice between love and fear in your life. It's a lot of subconscious fear within marketing. So when you're in service to others, you're expressing love, versus if you're earning all this money because you have a good business idea and it's all about me, there's a component of fear to that, saying I don't have enough. I have to be better than everybody else. It's fear based. And so it's one of my favorite conversations with my clients. This is talking about the dynamic of love versus fear. It's even a chapter in my upcoming book.
Andrew, could you expand more on this concept of love versus fear and how it relates to attainment of happiness?
Well, for me, there's a component of love versus fear in every choice that you make. You reach a crossroads. And I'm talking about the major decisions. I'm not talking about things like, well, we're going to go eat Chinese or Italian for dinner. I mean, yes, that is a choice, but in some degrees, that's a which one do I love more, right? I love Chinese and I love Italian. Which one am I more in favor of tonight? I'm talking about the sort of the big ticket choices that really make an impact on your life. I think it would serve you well if you were to sit down, and even if you need to scribble it out and say, okay, what are the love-based pieces of this choice and what are the fear-based? And as much as you can, always choose the love-based, because you'll get a better result in your life from it.
No, it's very intriguing because a lot of people don't realize they're operating out of fear. Like it's so ingrained on a subconscious level where they go
Yeah,
about.
because it's not at the surface level of the decision, right? Trying to decide between, do I marry this woman or not? That's what's at the surface level here, but it takes some time and some introspection to think about. Okay, I don't marry this woman. What about love or fear is running through that choice? And or yes, I do desire to marry this woman. What are the love and fear components? Like if you do decide to marry this woman and there's a lot of fear involved in it, then you're making a wrong choice, right? Because
Mhm.
maybe that decision is I'm fearful I'm not going to be somebody in this world unless I marry this rich woman. That's a fear-based decision. May look great on the surface. Everyone's like, heck yes, you outpunted your coverage, as they say. But in
Yeah.
reality, marriage may only last 5 years because things start oozing, if you will, out of the marriage because you made that decision based out of fear. You start getting resentful and some other things are involved in the dynamic of the relationship because you made the decision out of fear.
And I'd like to add that you like if you're coming from a place of fear, your partner or spouse will look at that and they will react in a fearful way as well, and it just creates a cyclical loop where it just
Mm-hmm.
gets worse and worse because each one is feeding off the other, right? And at some point, somebody's got to make the decision. No, we have to operate from a place of love, but it then ends up being like one of the hardest things to do.
Yep, I've been married twice. First time, my life story has been about self-esteem. I had really bad self-esteem, high school, college, early 20s, and brought that was my baggage that I brought into my first marriage. And there were components of fear because of my low self-esteem issues that were in my marriage, and it only lasted 6, 7 years. I know that now because I was introspective afterwards, went to therapy and did other things to fix my self-esteem issue because I wanted something different for my life. But if I hadn't sat down and been introspective after the fact and said, uh, I brought something to the table, I'm not going to play victimhood here, even though it was my wife that left the marriage. I could have easily have done that, but I had to ask myself the question, what did I contribute to the issues? And I need to own that and go do something about it.
Andrew, what you did over there is one of the bravest things that anybody can do because it's like, believe it or not, it's one of the hardest things in the world. Like, I had to do a lot of introspection myself during my life, and I know it's one of the hardest things in the world to do.
Mm-hmm.
You have to confront your own fears and insecurities. You got to look at yourself in the mirror, but
Yes.
that's the only way you're going to ever get better in life and get to where
Mm-hmm.
you want to be. But most people don't want to do that. But and if you're in my audience and you're listening to it, you have to be able to confront your own fears and insecurities and then start asking the question, can you operate from love? Or are you operating from fear? And if you're operating from fear, start operating from love. But I know it's easier said than done because you and I both know it's pretty hard to do.
Yeah, it is. It's the hero's journey, as they say. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life. Is to take ownership of your life. My favorite phrases to my clients is, "You're the CEO of your life," and you have one very big, limited set of resources in your basket. And it's called time. So, if you're the CEO of your life, how are you going to use that resource of time to bring about the best result?
Well, Andrew, a lot of people would just say, "I'm just gonna watch Netflix," but but but
Okay.
but but no. But on a more serious note, though, you're right. Time is the most important resource you can have, and as a businessman, as an entrepreneur, like the entrepreneurs know especially well that they only have so many hours a day, and they got to make things work. and once you can get your money back. If you lose money, you can get your money back, but you can't get your time back. Like
Nope.
once it's gone, it's gone.
It's gone.
And yet most people are comfortable with trading their time for like their hours for dollars, like trading the time for money and not trying to start a business, even though it is risky. But at the end of the day, what is more riskier,
Well,
like
that's what the world teaches us, right?
yeah.
About what success is. So let me ask you this, Cosmos. What's your definition of success for yourself?
I think it is basically to attain a certain level of impact where you're influencing people's lives for the better. And like basically in my own personal life, to attain a certain level of tranquility and equanimity in terms of like calmness, like in meditation and all that, and trying to get my happiness from within. Because Andrew, let's face it, right? Your environment can be very hostile, and it can be like not friendly to you, and it can be a negative environment. But if you yourself are centered around yourself, and the way you master your mind to respond to the environment in a certain way, it can make all the difference in the world. And then simultaneously, if you combine it with making an impact to others, then naturally your life starts it's like a spiraling loop upwards, a lot. But like you have to get rid of the negative self chatter. A lot of like what I think is success is mastering yourself. It's not about mastering the world. It's about conquering your own fears and insecurities and becoming the best version of yourself, like being better than who you were yesterday. And
Yeah, go back to my model, to work on your being and to remember who you are.
yeah, like I mean, I've thought about it quite
The
a bit.
world makes you forget who you are because they keep showing you this model of something else, saying you should be this. And so you're kind of like subconsciously being brainwashed constantly through all the messages that you need to be something other than what you really are.
I mean, I'm
And
gonna be
so
real.
you're constantly battling against that every single day in your life to remember who you are. Because when you first come out into the world, you have no problems remembering who that is. But it's through the constant beating that you take through life that makes you forget who you are.
Most people are living other people's ideas of success and happiness. We're living other
Instead of
people's.
defining it for themselves.
It's
My definition of success is living my why out loud every single day. You'll notice that there's not a single word in that sentence that says anything about money.
It's the ultimate irony, right? Entrepreneurs in the process of making money ultimately come to the conclusion that it was not about the money. It's about them confronting their own fears and insecurities.
The
And
successful ones, yes, the successful ones.
okay, correct. You're right. The successful ones. That because they have to ultimately become the best version of themselves. And the only way is to confront your own fears,
That's what I
become.
help my clients do. It's self-leadership. How are you going to lead yourself?
Well, you have to be authentic, right? You got to be true to yourself. You can't lie to yourself. You
Well,
might
you got to figure out your why and purpose in life. That's the starting point. Then you're going to figure out what I call your personal culture is. Your personal culture is you have your mind, heart, and spirit, and your values, and how you use those values in that love versus fear dynamic, and a whole bunch of other things, and how you make your decisions. And it's no different than a business. A business does that exact same thing. It's just that more people involved. That's the only difference. So to work on your being is to work on your why and purpose in life, as well as to work on your personal culture, because everything that happens outside of yourself is a reflection of what's going on in your personal culture.
Andrew, I'd like to add, right, for like in terms of like, let's say for America, in terms of its national identity, most
Mhm.
people have forgotten their why and their identity of who they are as Americans. But the way you're presenting it, if you put that on a national context, and then people start operating out of a love basis, out of a system of love versus fear, which they're doing right now, things
Mhm.
would change radically, where they like did a little bit of introspection onto like where they stopped blaming the other people or like the other side or whatever, and then started having introspection of how I can make things better. Like what you're saying right now, if you apply it on a national context, it would be revolutionary in terms of thinking, you know?
It would be from the current state that the country is in, right? Because the country is very much in a black and white thinking right now. There is no gray area. You have people are giving you your brand and identity, as opposed to you taking ownership and making it what you want it to be.
And that's exactly what I'm saying, Andrew.
Mm.
By being authentic to ourselves as Americans and like knowing who we are, and not letting others define who we are, but like
Mhm.
making the definition for yourself, even on an individual level, it radically changes everything. Because we're letting other people, the media, the news, like we're letting them determine who we are, but that's not the case. That's just other people, right? But that's
Mhm.
like what you're talking about at an individual level can also take place on a national level as well. And that's what I find really interesting, you know, because these are like what you're saying is applicable, it's practical, but most people are not doing it, but they should be doing it.
Yeah, if they want truly a life of joy, happiness, and success, and allowing their fellow neighbor to participate in that, there's going to have to be a change in mindset, attitude, and in a way of life.
So, Andrew, from your perspective, what was the biggest mindset shift you had in your own personal life that revolutionized everything, like that transformed the way you thought and like it just changed everything from there on?
Well, in a self-esteem journey, it's the tapes that are playing. I call them tapes.
The
The
negative pattern.
messages that you keep circulating around in your head. I had to go through a process. I wrote out different affirmations for myself, typed them on a piece of paper, and taped them up to the mirror in my bathroom where I would see it every single day. And it took a process of saying those over and over and over again, getting to the point where they were memorized that I didn't even have to be in the bathroom to just keep repeating that to myself. And, they say it takes 66 days to have a behavioral change and make it a habit, right? So if you're doing that for 66 days, eventually the new tapes become permanent in your head and start changing your mindset about yourself and about the world. And it's everything.
Andrew, one of the biggest revelations I had during my own personal entrepreneurial journey was you are not your thoughts and actions, and you're not your mind. You are the awareness behind that. And a lot of
Your
times
beliefs.
you're not even your beliefs. Those are
No.
just temporary, those are just temporary. You're the soul behind that. You're like the
Oh
wind.
yeah. Yeah, definitely a soul behind that.
And that was the biggest revolutionary thing for me personally, because when you realize that you're not even your beliefs, you're not your identity, because your identity is temporary. It's
Mm-hmm.
what you want it to be. You actually have the power to alter your identity and to take a step back. But it comes from a place of calmness. Like in my case, it was in meditation. When I was
Mm-hmm.
meditating, I realized that all these thoughts are just sharing, like all these identities are like this identity is there, and I realized that I'm witnessing this from a third person's perspective, and this is not me, and I could detach myself from it. And then that just changed my entire thinking. Your
And it
identity,
brought some peace and calm to you, right?
Yeah,
I
like
mean, a true sense of being,
your true
and,
self.
and that your true sense of being is love.
Yeah. And basically it's love and it's calmness, it's tranquility.
Hmm.
You're not your beliefs, you're not your identity, you're not your thoughts, you're not your emotions, you're something more than that. But then once you realize that, now you can start altering that where you can create the positive reality that you want. But it takes time. It's not a one day fix. It, as you said, 66 days to create a certain change.
Hmm. What do you think the universe wants for you?
The
I mean, if the
universe,
universe saw you that you were recognizing yourself again and you were just being in your soul, don't you think that's pretty attractive to the universe?
I mean, the ultimate point of the universe is to bring us back to our original state, right? And
Hmm.
that's based on love.
Yeah. So, what do you think is going to do for you in your life when it sees that?
It'll start bringing opportunities and more abundance because because it's just like
Because
a,
that's your purpose coming to Earth, right? Your soul coming to Earth is to learn that lesson, and when the universe sees that happening, it knows you've reached a state that you're ready for what it's about to bring.
wow. I think it's like a, yeah, it's
My book is about how you can make uh, the last chapter is about how you uh, pretend that the universe is a VC.
can you tell me and the audience a little bit more about your book?
So the book's on self-leadership. It's about how to develop a life strategy for yourself to find joy, happiness, and success in your life. And the methodology that I use, that I developed, was to take business tools. And we may not have enough time left on your podcast to go into deep in this, but um, you can tweak business tools to help develop a life strategy for yourself. And my last chapter is just pretending, or I take people through, what it takes to do the pitch. If you have an idea for a business and you've put a plan together and you're going for the pitch with a private equity firm or a venture capitalist, here's all the things that you would put in your pitch to try and sell the idea.
Mhm.
Well, what about doing the same thing for the universe, for your life? What's your pitch? Because the universe is looking for certain things, just like a VC or a private equity firm is looking for certain things before they'll sign on the dotted line and write you that check. Say, go after it.
When you're putting it like that, somehow it's clicking. Like normally people ask the universe and they don't get what they want, but it's because the universe is saying you're not ready yet. Your own mind is blocking you. But if you can
Mm.
alter your mindset where you're in a receiving mode, then suddenly and you're ready with the right thoughts and actions, then
Well,
yeah,
don't you think a VC is evaluating that about you when you do a pitch? Is this guy ready for success? Is this guy a true, or gal a true leader? Do they have the smarts? Do they have the right kind of thinking and mindset to be a leader in this business? Don't you think that's part of their evaluation? Why wouldn't the universe be the same way?
what do you think would be the difference between how the VC is seeing it and how the universe would see it?
Um, I think the VC may lean more towards how you're leading others, and the universe is more about how you're leading yourself.
Wow.
Right, because the universe is interested in, do you have self-love for yourself, and are you coming back to yourself to remember that you are love? That's how the universe is deciding if you're ready. If you see me not get into that kind of levels of discovery to understand whether you have self-love or not, but they are going to make an evaluation whether you can lead others to put a team together to go after this business. Now, the ones that really understand the dynamic that, well, you need to be authentic and have a lot of self-love to be a really great leader, the VCs that understand that are going to peel that onion back a little bit with you in your pitch, but not, I can't say that all of them do that.
Yeah, self-love is ultimately like not in a narcissistic way, but just like truly loving yourself and being like not having like just being okay with yourself and knowing that you're loved, is a
So
pretty
it's remembering who you are and that you're worthy of love from others. Just because you're being and no other reason. And then you want to surround yourself with people that understand that and accept you for who you are. They see who you are, and they want to be around you for that.
wow. No, it makes sense. But Andrew, on a different note, can you tell me and the audience a little bit more about your Generate Your Value coaching program and what the premise of how it got started?
Well, I got started back in my Boeing days. It's my why, right? So I named it Generate Your Value because I love the word value, right? Because value comes in different shapes, colors, sizes. We could fill up your whole podcast just talk about all the ways that value shows up in the world. So I'm trying to make it somewhat of a movement to get people. We were talking about those tapes in the head in your head. I have a tape that says when I put my foot on the floor after getting out of bed in the morning, first question I'm going to ask myself is how am I going to generate value in the world today for yourself as well as for others from that perspective. So that was kind of the nucleus of my thought when I got laid off and what I wanted to do the rest of my life, per se, in the work environment. And it was my favorite thing to do was to help grow people. I always consider myself more of a life coach than a boss from that perspective, is to help people on their journey to go remember who they were. And so my coaching program is all based around that, depending on where the person's sitting in life and what they need help with. But I'm a firm believer that your leadership of others is a direct reflection of what's going on in your self-leadership. And that's where my work is with my executives or business owners and my coaching is we're going to be talking more about you than the people that you lead. Because if you have people on your team, they're disengaged, most likely because you're disengaged from yourself.
No, totally. I would tell my audience that yeah, one of the central things is you got to know yourself and you gotta love yourself and all of that and know
Mm-hmm.
your why and all of that. So this is pretty important stuff. So um but Andrew, can you tell enlighten us a little bit more about your Generator Value podcast and what it does and the nature of the podcast?
So we've been in it for 3 seasons. We're starting our recording the 4th season next week. our first season and a half, Zach, my co-host, and I did most of the episodes, just the two of us talking back and forth and what we felt like were major elements about life and leadership and business. Sort of a library, if you will, of episodes people could go to if they had a specific area they wanted to concentrate on. And then after a year and a half, we start bringing on guests that have been successful in life, or whatever way they defined it for themselves, but in the business world and in life. And we spend the first 10, 15 minutes just talking about their life story and maybe pull some self-leadership nuggets out of it that we'll talk about a little bit. And then depending on where they are in business and so forth, we'll spend the last half hour talking about a particular theme or topic, and we'll kind of stretch it and pull it and dissect it and so forth, with the hopes that somebody listening to it will pull some things out of the conversation and the stories that they might take and integrate into their life or into their leadership or into their business and help themselves to grow. So in essence, we're really trying to generate value in the lives of our listeners with every episode.
No, Andrew, I know about your generate the value, and it's really similar to what I'm doing. And I would definitely recommend my audience to take a look at this podcast, because the guests over there are amazing, and you have some really good advice on business and all of that. It's amazing.
Well, we're growing. We're in the top 10% podcasts in the world, and in the top 100 of independent podcasts relative to management and leadership.
That's awesome, Andrew. So, Andrew, how can our audience connect with you and get to know more about you, your podcast, and coaching and all and what you're doing?
Well, the easiest way is go to my website, generateyourvalue.com, where lay out my coaching program and so forth. You meet my two puppy dogs, Bo and Luke, over on the website, as well as hit our podcast. Generate Your Value is available on any podcast platform, as well as on my website, where you can listen to all the episodes. And hopefully, between this conversation tonight with you and the podcast and my website and upcoming book, and hopefully a TEDx talk as well, I'll keep generating value in the world. That's what my why is.
Andrew, that is amazing. And I'm really honored that you took the time to come on this podcast and provide your value and insight to me and the audience. And we definitely don't take it for granted. It's amazing. And I definitely want to have you on the show at a later time.
Oh, anytime. I had a great time, and I greatly appreciate the invite to come on to your podcast. Keep generating your value, Cosmos.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Andrew. And I want to conclude this show by letting my fellow extraordinary Americans know that, hey, look, there's an extraordinary within each and every one of us, and it's our duty to awaken it and unleash it. Until next time, bye for now.
Hey there, everyone. Thank you for watching Extraordinary America. If you like what you see, please do subscribe to our podcast and share it with others. Remember that the best investment that you can make in your lifetime is in your own financial education, for it is knowledge that truly sets you free. Also remember that your purchasing power is being diluted through inflation, and then the practical thing to do is to protect the loss of your purchasing power by investing in precious metals or the right cryptocurrencies. Also, never forget that you are an extraordinary American. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.